everybody. Welcome back to our Friday night collaboration with Higher Levels with Shay. You can find her on TikTok. You can find her on Instagram. We're going live also on TikTok tonight. And Higher Levels with Shay is coming on now. She is so many good things for you to learn about your health and about your children's health. So tonight we're going to dive into ADHD, ADD, developmental delays, and there she is. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me back, sister. It's a pleasure being here with you and your audience.
Oh, thank you so much. Shantavia is also on Higher Levels with Shay on TikTok, and I'm going to do one thing here if you don't mind. Sorry about that. They can find you on TikTok as well. She has so much information to share, but tonight she is sharing with us ADD and ADHD, and Higher Levels by Shay. Higher Levels with Shay has so much information, including developmental delays. And so I am going to just welcome her with big open arms.
Thank you.
You know, the last time you were with us, we had so much fun.
Yes, we did. It's always a good time with you. I don't know why I can't see your screen, though.
Yeah, I can see you.
You can see me?
I can see you. You're beautiful. You have on blue. You have your hair done on your head. You're looking amazing with a beautiful smile.
Okay. I can't see you on my screen for some reason. But
okay. Did you want to come out and go back in?
You know, I can hear you perfectly fine, though. So I think we should be okay.
Okay, all right. Well, actually, it's Friday. I need a big cup of coffee, but I think I am raring to go now. And we are so welcome that you are back with us. You have so many resources and such a wealth of information when it comes to the medical arena. And tonight we are talking ADD, ADHD, and we're talking developmental delays and autism, which is very close to my heart, being that I've worked with children who are autistic. Where do you want to start tonight?
Actually, I want to just start, you know, as a whole. We could talk about ADD, and that's an attention deficit disorder. We could talk about ADHD, which is an attention deficit with hyperactivity disorder, and then we can also talk about autism. So we're going to talk about them all as a melting pot as a whole.
Okay.
Since it has something to do with the children's developmental system as a whole and developmental delay and their developmental progress. So we're going to just begin specifically with just the definition and educate your audience on exactly what it is with those disease processes. And then I want to talk about lifestyle changes that we can make for our children so that we can help them holistically, okay?
I love that. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into it. And again, I wish I had a cup of coffee before this show, but I am ready for you. Let's dive into it. And what do you want to start with?
Let's start with the statistics. So 1 in 3 children born in the United States are diagnosed with either ADHD, ADD, or autism. And that is a significant amount of children, seeing as how we have millions of births a year, and we're talking about 1 in 3 children are affected by it. What is ADD? What is ADHD? What is autism? How does that affect your child, you know, holistically? Well, ADD is attention deficit disorder, meaning that your child has a difficult time with paying attention to simple direction, not anything simply complex. So, for example, let's say you're educating a child at 6 months on how to hold their bottles or how to identify a letter or identify just a family member, but their attention is so easily distracted by a sound or by noise or by, you know, a light or just anything to distract them. And then you start to notice that progresses when they're 1 and they're 2 and they're 3. So we all know children, let's just make it clear that the normal development for children, especially between the ages of 0 and 2 years of age, they have a short attention span. So let's at least, you know, say that for a fact. However, the difference is when they cannot sit still and they are having a hard time giving you eye contact and really paying attention, even for just 30 seconds, as to what it is you're trying to teach them. Then you have ADHD, which is still attention deficit disorder, but now it's with hyperactivity. And hyperactivity meaning they're running around, they're kind of fidgety, they're having excessive movement, they're dancing a lot, they're so twitchy, and you just simply can't get them to just focus and just pay attention to what it is at the task that is right there in front of their faces. And a lot of that is due to, I know the normal go-to is going to be fructose and sugars. So a lot of that is artificial sugars. But we're talking about starting from birth. And a lot of times when we have our child and they are, between 2 to 6 months, and I want to make sure I'm really careful with what I'm about to say. This has been scientifically proven.
Okay.
It's a lot of the vaccines. So a lot of the children and the heavy metals and the mercury that's in the vaccines, what it does is it sits on our children's brains. We have our gray matter and we have our white matter. And those parts of your brain actually help with the synaptic nerves. And so, in our brains, when we're connecting from our brain to our spinal cord, our entire neurovascular system, simply telling our bodies what to do. The electromagnetic signals are blocked because of a lot of the metals on the brain. So when you add things like sugar, processed foods on top of vaccinations, the lack of vitamin D, the lack of sunlight, then that plays a huge part. Then you have autism. Now, with autism, your child could have ADD. Your child could also be diagnosed with ADHD. But autism is, and regardless of where your children is on the spectrum, where they are on the spectrum, whether they are on a lower spectrum, meaning that they're not as affected as someone who's on a higher spectrum, and you have some that are verbal and those that are nonverbal. And so when we're speaking about autistic children, it affects their developmental delays when not only when it comes to attention, but it affects their speech. It affects how they overall view the world. It's almost like, picture this. It's almost as if like they thought process and the way that they receive information is completely different. So it's not they're not receiving information, but they have to process it completely differently, as if each piece is a puzzle piece. And now in their minds, they're trying to figure out how those pieces fit into one another in order to paint the bigger picture, so they can understand exactly what it is that you're asking for them to do, or whatever task it is you're asking for them to do. So even when they're paying attention, it takes them a while, an extensive amount of time for it to register in their brains and them to truly have an understanding as to what it is you want them to do. And so when we talk about the spectrum, some children they have a better understanding of grasping the information or the direction a lot easier than those who are higher on the spectrum. And a lot of times those who are on a lower spectrum, they may have an attention deficit, but they're still able to speak.
Okay, can I interrupt you just for a second? So we went from ADD to ADHD and autism. Just to circle back, do you run into a lot of adults who have ADD and ADHD? Because I know that's the issue with autism. It can be any age. But how are you working with adults who are in that space?
So the same thing. So the exact same information that I'm going to give you as far as the lifestyle changes, it applies to an adult as well. And so absolutely, in my career and just my everyday life, and with me being in the medical field 15 years, you tend to be very analytical and assessing people even when you're not even trying to. So even just me simply going to the grocery store, I can tell whether someone has autism, ADHD, ADD, and be able to pick up on those diagnoses due to the signs and symptoms that I'm able to see right in front of my eyes. And so when you're dealing with anyone of any age who has ADD and ADHD, what you have to remember is, if you're going to give them instructions, you have to give it to them in simplistic form and then one instruction at a time. So you don't want to overload them. You don't want to overstimulate the person, whether they are a child or an adult. And then when you see that a lot, especially in the working field, you'll see adults, like one of the telltale signs, they get extremely flustered and extremely overwhelmed extremely quickly. Or they are in their phones within 2 minutes in a meeting, and so they have a really hard time with paying attention to anything that is transpiring, in the workplace.
Okay.
So you kind of just want to just get their attention and bring them back. Like, hey, John, did you hear what I said? Hey, John, are you, can you elaborate on that last, whatever part, and just kind of bring them back into the topic, bring them back into the conversation to let them know that they are important and that they should be present in that space mentally and emotionally. And then so when you're giving an adult a task, you have to be able to pay attention and be analytical and see that, okay, if I tell him to do 5 or 6 different things, he starts to get flustered. They take really big sighs, because a lot of times adults are not going to be transparent and say it out loud. And I say, well, you know what? I don't want to overwhelm you. This is what I would like you to do. Excuse me. This is what I would love for you to do first. Let's prioritize. Can you do task A and task B currently? And then we'll move from there. And that's just how to just handle adults just on a social level. But what I'm going to give to you all when we're speaking about lifestyle changes, herbs, and how to take care of yourself holistically, that is going to apply to everyone.
Okay. I love that. And, that's another conversation that I think we need to have as a whole.
Yeah.
Because we address it in the school systems with our counselors, with our teachers. But, what do you do when you run into that when your employee has ADD or your colleague has ADHD, and that's a conversation that really isn't carried in the workplace.
Correct. But I'll tell you what a great leader does. A great leader will analyze their staff, and they will actually be able to discern, like have that gift of discernment and decipher what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths. Like me, I've been in management. I run my own businesses, and so I don't discriminate against anyone. I will hire anyone because I know how to deal with people of all kinds.
Right.
And so for me, like, I will analyze my staff, and if I see that me putting too many tasks on your plate is not your strong suit, then I will give that person, the prioritize what's most important, what I need for them to do at that time, and I'll assist them in whether it's planning, whether it's just, whether it's just us kind of mapping out what our daily goals is before we talk about weekly goals or monthly goals or quarterly goals. What are our daily goals? What can we get done today? And so you just have to be careful not to overstimulate your employees or your coworker, and being able to empathize with them, not sympathize, because they're human and no one wants sympathy, but to just empathize with them and be patient with them, because one of their strengths may be your weakness. You see, like I'll tell you like this, what I have noticed is, yes, a lot of adults have attention deficits, but they're punctual. Well, whereas there's someone else who can handle multiple tasks, but they're tardy, you see?
Yes.
And so you just figure out how to place your team and how to utilize your team and maximize their skills.
Okay.
So that's
good.
something we definitely should talk about. I'll be glad to discuss that.
That's good. I like that. So I don't want to get you off base, and we dove right into autism. And you were really starting to talk about some of the things that may cause autism. So let's continue that conversation.
Absolutely. And let's talk about what is lacking. What is lacking in today's society is a lot of children and adults, but specifically, it is very vital for your children to get out there and get sunlight. Sunlight may seem like it is just something so minuscule, but at the end of the day, what sun does, and let me tell you how miraculous God is. We have such a marvelous God that He's created everything on earth that we need for us to essentially be able to thrive and survive. And so when that sun hits us, not only is it increasing the melanin in all children, but it's also breaking down cholesterol, turning into vitamin D. And then the vitamin D is help strengthening your bones, it's help strengthening your bone marrow, it's binding to calcium. And then on top of that, it's also increasing the serotonin and the dopamine. what is serotonin and dopamine and how is it important to our bodies? Well, the serotonin and the dopamine, those are chemicals in our body that helps us to focus more. It stimulates our mood, regulates our mood, sharpens our memory, sharpens our senses. And so that is extremely important to have your children out there in the sun and then having them grounded and putting their feet on the grass so that the negative energy can go back into the ground. And I know it sounds really, we've gotten so far away from that. So it sounds,
I ground every morning.
I do too. And I see you grounded. And I love when I see you grounded and you walking outside that grass. I'm like, that is my sister and I love her. So I encourage my children every day. And one thing I would say, I mean, this is just me personally, but I am a huge advocate in mental health days for children. I will absolutely allow my children to miss a day of school if I see they're overstimulated and they haven't been out in the sun because they're in school for 8 hours a day, then they're on a bus, and then they're at home, then they have 2 or 3 hours worth of homework to do, and then by the time they finish homework and freshening up and eating dinner, the sun is out. And so if I start to notice that they're having that like vitamin D or the sun deficiency, then I will allow them on a good day, like for example, let's say it's raining all Saturday and Sunday and it's gloomy, but then Monday is a great day and they haven't been outside the sun in 2 or 3 weeks. I honestly will allow my children to have those mental health days. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to go to the park. We're going to go in nature. We're going to go hiking. Because that's very, very, very important to be one with nature and stay connected to nature. So that's one thing that I would say. That's, just me just saying that. Another thing I want to say is cleansing the gut. Cleansing the gut. And what we put into our bodies absolutely matters. Our gut is a connection to our brain. And what I mean by that is, by cleansing the gut is, with today's food choices, especially with the way we as adults are maneuvering through life and we're working so much, we're going to school, no one seems to have enough time to cook a home-cooked meal twice a day, every single day. And so what we're doing is we're substituting that with those processed foods, with the fast foods, with the heavy starches. And so when we're talking about cleansing the gut and detoxing the body, it starts with first making that lifestyle change to cleanse your diet. And so you want to stay away from processed foods. You want to stay away from foods that have bleach in it, like white foods, like sugar. Instead of using the white sugar, you can use sugar cane. Instead of you eating white rice, switch it over to brown rice or wild rice. Instead of you using salt, iodized salt, which is, I encourage everyone to stop using iodized salt, and I would highly recommend using like pink Himalayan salt. Because that bleach the bleach absolutely plays a huge part, and the processed foods plays a huge part in that metal and that mercury binding to the brains and decreasing the effects of the neurovascular system. Because this is all caused by an impairment with the neurovascular system. And so if you cleanse the gut and detoxify the gut, then you're ultimately healing the neurovascular system. So some herbs and some fruits and vegetables that I would encourage everyone to eat and to give to your children. And keep in mind that children with ADD, ADHD, and autism, they have an issue with texture. So what may seem normal to us, like rice, grits, oatmeal, it's something about texture that really irritates children with developmental delays. It doesn't feel right to them, and so they are not really prone to eating those foods. So you assess your own child, figure out your own child, but when and you just kind of alter their foods and their meals as you see fit. But what I did with my son, because he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and he's 7 now. And when he was young, I was told that the place in which he is now, which he's speaking, he's reading, he's writing, he's no longer on IEP, he's no longer in special needs class. I was told that he wasn't going to be there until he was 12 to 13 years of age. Me being in the medical field, that actually catapulted me into tapping into natural, holistic, and herbal care, because I wasn't going to take that diagnosis and I wasn't going to allow my son to be on medication. And so for me, I started to really discover the benefits of fruits, vegetables, and herbs and how it can heal our bodies. And I ultimately became a certified herbalist. And
I
so
love
that's what
that.
I teach and that's what I do
I
now.
love
Yes,
that. Can we put a pin in that for a minute? Because that's
yes,
something that I share with women, and even with my son being born early, and they said he's going to have developmental delays and he's going to be behind. And when I tell you, this kid graduated from high school with almost a 5.0, he was always ahead of the curve. As far as being able to run, he couldn't run as fast and throw balls as far, but the brain was sharp because of the food changes. And so what you said was just like really big. And I want people to hear that whatever the doctors say, food is critical.
yes,
And I love that you said that. I really wanted to pause so everyone hears that.
yes,
Whatever the doctors tell you, first of all, God is a healer and he's given us everything that we need for our bodies, right?
yes,
Not
absolutely.
pills. He's given us the sun, the water, the ground, food coming from the ground. Thank you I just wanted to underline that point. So well taken. I wanted everyone to hear what you
Yes,
just said in a really big way because that's very critical.
it is. It really is. And I'm glad that you are able to relate to that. Mark 10, chapter 10, verse 13 to 16, it says, a picture of a parent bringing their child to Christ, and he will hug them, he will love them, he will teach them, and he will bless them. When I tell you
Amen.
Jesus and God they are amazing, and what God has done for us on earth is he didn't give us sickness. He didn't give us illnesses.
Right.
He gave us all the fruits, vegetables, water, and herbs that we need to sustain our lives. And when we are doomed with illnesses, then that's come from environmental issues, and that comes from something that's externally and what we put in our bodies. See, we do it to
Right.
ourselves, no one else.
Yeah.
And so there's always, if there's a cause, there's always a cure. You
Yes.
see?
Yes.
Because the body wants to be balanced and the body wants to be in homeostasis. It's a self-healing organism. And so when we talk about the importance of food, you have like blueberries, for example. Blueberries, grapes are very astringent fruits, and they are high in antioxidant. And I always push blueberries and grapes because they help to cleanse, not to cleanse, but they help to hyperoxygenate the cells in your brain, and with enough oxygen that gives you your brain and your cells is able to maneuver and function at a
Yeah.
higher level. So you have those blueberries and you have those grapes, and then you have the boron and the tannin in there that helps to cleanse and estrange the neurovascular system.
Right.
Then you have some certain, well, I'll get to the herbs later, but then you have your melons, and I always speak high on the melons that helps to hydrate your cells and hydrate your brain, because sometimes your brain can get inflamed with all of the toxins and the heavy metals and the mercury. And when it's inflamed, then they're extremely irritable. They're extremely sensitive to light, extremely sensitive to sound. And so you want to make sure that you keep that brain in a calming state as much as possible and keep it as hydrated as possible. So you want to eat your melons. It's full of H3O2.
Yeah.
Then we have some herbs. So you get your fruits, you have your vegetables like your celeries, your cilantro, your parsley, which are very, very, very good
That was my
for
line.
cleansing the vascular system. Yes, yes, and open up the nephrons in the kidneys, which is your filtration system.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
You want, when you talk about herbs, you have to be careful when we're talking about children here, because just like anything, too much of anything is not good for you. So before I give the herbs, there is a disclosure I would like to say. Make sure that you consult with a certified herbalist, which I am, but you go and do your own homework, your own due diligence, consult with a physician, and make sure and do your own due diligence on these herbs, because a lot of herbs can counteract with medications, and they also can have certain effects on your body. So if you are a woman who is listening to this live and you have ADD, autism, but you're pregnant, you absolutely want to make sure that you do your due diligence on these herbs, because again, they can have a negative effect on your body, especially if you're pregnant. Okay. Now, for children, we have safe herbs. I made sure to have some herbs that I wanted to discuss, and they are extremely safe for children, like Cascara sagrada. Cascara sagrada is an amazing herb because what it does is it extends the mucus from your brain. It extends the mucus and the plaque off of your neurovascular system. It helps to alleviate a lot of that heavy metal and that mercury out of your neurovascular system and out of your gut, especially out of your gut. And so you're cleansing your gut. Now, keep in mind while you're on these herbs, you're going to have improved defecation patterns and improved urination patterns. So as long as it's not diarrhea, then you're absolutely safe to continue to take them, okay? So Cascara sagrada is one that I would highly recommend. I would also recommend chamomile and lavender. The reason why I recommend chamomile and lavender is because they're soothing. They are natural soothing, antioxidant and antidepressant, especially the lavender. So it'll help calm your child without you over medicating them to calm them down, without you giving them a synthetic medication or something artificial to help calm them down. Try the holistic way first.
Okay.
And your body is going to recognize it as a natural substance, so it's not going to have a negative effect on the detoxification system, such as your liver. It helps to break down, and your kidneys, they help to break down along with your GI. Another herb I would recommend is lemon balm. Lemon balm is an anti-inflammatory. So again, it helps with the inflammation in your gut, and it also helps with the inflammation on your brain. So you combine all these together, and it is doing an amazing job. Another herb, one herb that I would say is just really powerful is let's see here, passion flower. Passion flower. Really, really, really do your research on the herb passion flower because it is full of flavonoids and alkaloids. And what that simply means is not only does it calm your neurovascular system, it also enhances the mood and it increases your serotonin and your dopamine levels. And we discussed that earlier when we was talking about the sun. And so you want to combine all these. You can make them into a juice. Get your apples, get your berries, and the blacker the berry, the better. True transparency. So you get your berries, you get your melons, don't juice the melons with the berries, but you get your apples, you get your melons, you get your pineapple, your cucumbers, your cilantro, your parsley. Get these herbs and you juice them for your children. Turn them into a popsicle. Turn them into a sherbet. Figure out ways to do so. I also figured out a new way how to make them into fruit roll-ups and gummies.
Really?
Yes, and you can research these things because, children get tired of drinking juice all the time. And so you can make fun of snacks with it. Make them into a fruit snack. Do whatever you have to do to make sure that your child is getting this care that he or she needs. And at the same time, keep in mind that for the most beneficial effect, you have to make a lifestyle change. You have to change your diet. So to recap, how to heal and how to decrease the signs and symptoms of autism and helping your child, and ADHD and ADD, and helping your child to expand productively, developmentally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, grounding.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Omit processed foods like processed noodles and macaroni and cheese and
cereal,
canned foods and dairy, especially dairy. Removing cereal. Remove that from their diet while they're doing this cleanse. And I highly encourage you to increase your fluid intake. You can eat your food. Eat your water, H3O2, and get that from your melons and your cucumbers, or you can drink it. And I would highly recommend natural spring water. So you want to do those things and just continue to be repetitious with your children. So have a routine. If you're doing animals this week and you are focused on the same 5 animals, then stick to that. Don't overstimulate the child. Stick with animals first. That's what I did with my son. I started out with one topic at a time, and what I learned and what I was able to observe with him, he's such an amazing boy. Like, even to this day, he taught himself how to play piano. He taught himself how to play the clarinet and the guitar. He's extremely intelligent. What I noticed was he will sit there in silence. And so you be patient. He will sit there in silence as I was going through the learning, whatever topic we're discussing that day. He will sit there, and quite often he would kind of space out and I'll call his name, and I'll bring him back into attention, and I'll go over it again. Whatever I saw that he kind of missed from whatever distracted him, I will go back to that specific thing. And I did that with him every day. Never will repeat after me. Never will really participate, but he's paying attention. 2 or 3 days later, he'll be by himself in his room with whatever toy, whatever learning utensil that we were using at that time. He has it on his own, and he's going through it, doing exactly what we were doing 2 or 3 days ago. And that's what I mean when I say they have to process things a little differently. It does not mean you're not paying attention. So that is absolutely something I do want to say to your audience.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And one of the things that I love about you is just your wealth of information, and you live it.
Yes.
You know, you live it. In working with autistic children in Southern California, one of the components that I worked with was bringing them into a lab, into a computer lab. So what they would traditionally use in a book or with their hands, we would explore through the computer, whether it be colors, whether it be puzzles, whether it be math, and just because children with autism, I find they have so many different ways of learning, where we're more like this. We're very narrow thinking, very linear, and the autistic mind paints with colors that we don't even understand or know or can comprehend. And so, yeah, you are right on it. And that was such an amazing time in my life for me. Just working with kids of autism, because, you know, they kind of teach you things like that you would have never thought of doing, you know, because they reach for these stars that maybe we've never heard of, right? And to them, it's normal. It's within their reach. To us, it's that untapped part of the brain that we don't even tap into. Yeah, I love that. I love that. You are so amazing. For those of you who are just tuning in, we have been talking with Higher Levels with Shay. Also, her name is Shantavia. She is so full of wealth. She is an amazing, unshakable woman. Do you have any last comments for those who are listening to us tonight?
If I can leave with a comment, I will say, trust in God. Know that if you are suffering from ADHD, ADD, or autism, or if you have a child who is suffering from it, understand that God has blessed you with that child for a purpose, that you are highly gifted, and you have a purpose on this earth like no other. You are very, very, very smart, very intelligent. So I do want to make sure I say that. Another thing I like to say is, if anyone is interested, they could find me on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram and YouTube at Higher Levels with Shay. I am on KPTV, that's Kingdom Purpose Television, Kingdom Purpose Radio, Monday mornings at 10 a.m. at Higher Level Shay Morning Show. And I just love this beautiful gem right here. Thank you for having me on your platform. I really enjoy being here with you. I truly do.
Yeah, well, you are unshakable. We have a 5-part series, and we are only on 2, guys. When I tell you this woman has a wealth of information inside of her, she is the epitome. When you look at the dictionary and you see unshakable, you see Shantavia. You know, so grateful to have you. Yeah, because most of our audience are women. You know, and a lot of women that I have worked with in Southern California are stay-at-home moms, and some are not, but most of us are mothers. And for those of us who aren't mothers, they're aunties, they're godmothers, you know. So in some shape or form, women are always giving or lending to the children. And so thank you so much for this wonderful discussion this evening.
Welcome. You're welcome.
All right, don't forget to follow her on all platforms at higher levels. And Shay, I'm so glad I woke up, man. This has been a week, but I praise God that we made it to Friday and that we are walking upright and that we are all healthy and whole. And thank you so very much.
You're
And
welcome.
we hope that you guys tune in for the next week. You have to follow our platforms and see what
Yes.
Shantavia is bringing next week because it's going to be just as good. So she's at higher levels with Shay. Her name is Shantavia. She is blessed, and we are blessed to have her. Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. We will see you next week. Until then, continue to walk in love, forgiveness, and live unshakable. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much,
God bless
Shantavia.
you.
God
Bye.
bless.